worlds in ruin.
We had nothing to lose at that point.
Our understanding of the universe shattered.
We were prepared to sacrifice our ship for theirs.
And yet, in the midst of it all, a possible new dawn for humanity.
There's a moment when you just know you're a part of something big.
Watch history unfold, analyze the tactics, and witness the fight to save an empire in peril. December 1st, 2864. 200 light-years from Earth, the colony of Cassiopeia is about to make first contact. It's a small colony of under 100,000, mostly centered around the niche industry of exotic timbers.
I just started my tenure at the University of Ecclesia when I first heard the news about what was happening on the frontier. Some backwater outpost was reporting lights, sounds, evidence of intelligent activity. We all knew that the time had finally come.
As the craft breaches the air defense perimeter, all guns engage. The craft freezes in mid-air for a few seconds. Then it launches forward, damaged, ultimately crashing in an uncharted region deep in the jungle.
We had been colonizing worlds for centuries, and we found hundreds of Earth-like planets, all of them teeming with life, but not one civilization. Our biggest fear at the time was that we were actually alone in the universe. If we would ever have first contact, we assumed it wouldn't be a peaceful one. We had over 200 years worth of contingency plans in place, from some of the best military minds humanity had to offer. But what happens, really, when civilizations collide? There are simply too many unknown unknowns to plan for.
The incident is reported to Tekelian Central Command. The colony does not have the manpower or resources to venture so deep into the jungle. The Pavlodar Sector Flotilla, already patrolling the area, is ordered to assist with the recovery, unaware that the course of human history is about to change forever. A detachment from the 54th Marine Brigade prepares to make a high-altitude jump directly to the crash site.
observation satellite photographed the probable crash site at 5:40 this morning, as seen by the smoke rising out of the rainforest here. We'll halo down to these plateaus to the south to survey the terrain first. Then we'll hike down, take photographs, samples, and search for possible survivors. Non-human probability is very high, but don't get excited. Follow your protocols, do not fire unless fired upon, and keep it clean and professional. We're not gonna be heroes. We're gonna do a job.
Jumping from the edge of space is the fastest way down, especially into terrain unsuitable for landing a dropship, but in this case it also carries a major risk. It's monsoon season in the jungle, and the weather can change on a dime.
The atmospheric entry's looking good, but there's a storm cell forming up ahead. 3 and 4 split off. No matter which way the storm moves, some of us will make it through.
A supercell is rapidly forming over the landing zone. It's like a thunderstorm sucked into a tornado. The fire team is completely exposed and at the mercy of the air currents. Their options to maneuvers are limited. They can't open their parachutes without risking them getting tangled or ripped away, meaning their only option is to go straight through. Lightning strikes, sending their team leader into an uncontrolled spin. Still in freefall, they fight to stay on course. Eventually, using each other for leverage, they stabilize. The supercharged air starts to clear, and the storm system moves on as fast as it appeared. Only now, they have a new problem. The range of flat plateaus they intended to land on aren't plateaus at all. It's an alien city of unimaginable proportions, and it seems to be growing by the second. The first contact is brief, tense, and ultimately ends in tragedy. The Discovery sends shockwaves across human space.
In the following days, we'd gained a much bigger picture of our galactic neighborhood. Dozens of alien species had formed an alliance ruled by an artificial intelligence known as the Eridanic Dominion, and our 2 growing empires had finally crossed paths. Each species had evolved towards having a highly autocratic, dictatorial government, which had set up an automated system to run themselves. They blindly followed these AI leaders, even when they became completely unsupervised. These systems began to merge until they had a self-replicating totalitarian state with no one in charge. Every aspect of the Dominion was automated, including their foreign policy. Their so-called AI leader would talk itself in circles, completely ignoring any of our attempts to negotiate. But this broken program was taken completely seriously by their military. There was no real person in the loop who could be reasoned to override it, effectively making them an out-of-control state.
The Imperial Parliament is called into an emergency session to decide on a response to the alien threat. The Dominion doesn't wait for the deliberations and begins the invasion. It's the largest movement of forces ever detected.
Our prevailing beliefs as experts at the time was that our first contact would be a limited war, that it would end when both sides learned how to communicate. However, in this case, effective communication was simply not possible. That left only one option: total war.
The Kardashev system is the first to come under attack. The initial invasion force is over 20 ships, ranging from a heavy cruiser to shuttle tonnage, but many more are on the way. Only 2 ships from the Naval Reserve are in the area, the light frigate FL-342 and the corvette FS-9043 are undermanned and suffer from years of poor maintenance. Still, they are scrambled alongside 2 Kingfisher-class interceptors to meet the enemy now entering the upper stratosphere.
342 tower. Cossacks are maintaining course and bearing, descending at a rate of 110 arshim per second on heading 030. Good luck out there.
The 342 accelerates to flank. Her molten salt reactors power nuclear thermal rockets, which generate both vertical lift and horizontal thrust. The Kingfishers are liquid-fueled, designed for rapid high-altitude air interception. They are fast, but have very little loiter time. At standoff range, they fire a salvo of anti-ship missiles. 2 ships follow suit with their own. They hit the largest ship at the center, but to little effect. The 342 fires its mass driver, a large caliber railgun affixed to the prow, and scores a hit. But it's slow to reload, and they are quickly approaching main battery range. The alien fleet launches self-guided metal spikes in retaliation. The 342 turns hard, its crew struggling to stay upright under 6 Gs of acceleration. It's looking like the incoming vampires are about to hit home. But they are successfully intercepted by the human ship's decoys and close in weapons. Hopelessly outnumbered, the 2 ships fire their main cannons. 5-inch coilgun turrets are effective against some of the smaller ships, but barely make a dent in the enemy cruiser. Soon, both sides are trading salvos. The corvette is obliterated by one of the alien metal projectiles. Roughly half of the crew are able to eject to safety. Meanwhile, the 342 suffers a hit on the portside amidships. Fire breaks out through the life support compartment, but is successfully contained from reaching the magazine. The lone frigate is no match for the Aerodynic's main weapon, the particle beam. Breathtakingly powerful, it soars through hardened steel like it isn't even there. The 342's magazine detonates, sparing only 2 survivors who were in the conning tower at the time. Now unopposed, the alien armada continues toward the capital city below.
I was assigned to the 31st Guards Unit in the Army, sent to reinforce the colony Kardashev 1. We were one of the first responders in the invasion.
Down on the ground, the 31st Guards Regiment prepares to meet the enemy. They are a small colonial garrison, most of whom have never seen combat.
I was a squad leader, sergeant lower third at the time. We didn't know what we were getting into, but we knew the odds weren't good. First, they went for the planetary capital. What made it so tough to crack were anti-aircraft towers, keeping the ships away. We knew that they would try to get those towers offline first. Once those were down, they could fly in and just burn the whole city.
Poorly equipped and underfunded, they are all that stands in the way between the Aridinics and over 240,000 civilians. They don't know if help is even coming.
We had set up layers of defenses and fallback positions. The aliens would move around in these hovering transports. We called them lifelats. And they were packed in there like sardines. They had some kind of energy shielding and were very hard to destroy.
35, every day.
We would have to wait for the troops to get out and then open fire.
As more alien ships arrive every day, conversations are had about pulling back. Orders from Earth are, at best, days away, but the decision needs to be made now. Make a last stand in the city center or retreat into the hinterlands.
Look, there's no need to fall back. As long as the turrets hold, the wall will hold.
We spent a month under siege, holding out as best as we could. We only lost a block or two every day, but we made them bleed for every inch. But they were closing in on those towers, and at that point, it was only a matter of time.
The evacuation of Kardashev City is utter chaos. The city's second line of defenses have been breached and enemy infantry pours over the top. The last available air and artillery units are cleared to engage at point-blank range, resulting in several close calls.
A few units volunteered to stay behind and keep the towers manned, delayed the enemy advance for as long as they could.
Studying the Battle of Kardashev 1 revealed a fascinatingly tragic story. It will be remembered as one of the most significant events in military history. Despite it ending in defeat, we learned how to adapt their tactics, their technology, things we had never seen before.
The 31st, low on vehicles, commandeers local public transportation to reach the station. The front line is collapsing and units are being overrun. It's now a race against time to get out before the enemy closes in. At the station, the troops struggle to keep order as hundreds of thousands attempt to flee the city. Most civilians are left behind as the regiment forces their way onto the few remaining trains.
I grew up on Kardashev 1. Everyone believed we would hold the line, and I didn't want to abandon them. But what choice did we have? We'd have had a better chance away from the capital, trading land for time.
Military justifies their actions, claiming they are regrouping with other forces to the east and that they will come back to retake the city.
It was all lies. We were on the run, in full retreat, across the open countryside. Every unit went to a different direction. Mine went directly through my old hometown. Seeing my whole town abandoned was weird. So many familiar places existed in ways I had never seen them before. It was surreal. Like when you dream about your childhood memories. Everyone was gone. It felt like the whole place had been left behind. There was nothing to do but set up our defenses and wait for the enemy to arrive. You start to realize how blank and repetitive the city is without people in it, especially the outskirts. It's just miles and miles of empty housing blocks and plazas as far as you can see. We camped out for weeks, waiting in silence, patrolling around. It gave me a lot of time to look around and think. I had grown up here, but it no longer felt like home. It was just a big, lonely maze of concrete and glass now.
The route that the 31st retreated across was a freight line that connected the mining towns to the city. Most of that area is still abandoned today. The industries that supported that region evacuated and simply never returned. These buildings now stand exclusively as monuments to their defenders, and it's a powerful sight.
They say no man steps in the same river twice, because by the second time, it's not the same river, and he is not the same man.
Behind closed doors, a plan was beginning to take shape. We were going to risk everything and go on the offensive. It meant leaving a lot of worlds at the mercy of the enemy, but it was already clear that we could not win a purely defensive posture. The plan was crafted by a group of the Navy's Special Forces units. A handful of the top brass knew it in full, but everyone else was left largely in the dark.
The fight we were waiting for never came. After a couple weeks, we got the order to pack up and move east again. Most of the planet had already been lost, and we were heading to one of the last off-world points left. We met up with the other survivors at this small coastal spaceport. We were told that there would be boarding the second fleet. that we would be briefed underway on where we were going. My hometown, my roots were gone. And that was now just to drift in space. Give me a minute.
The 31st has endured a baptism of fire. They are awarded the Order of St. Michael for their defensive actions on Kardashev, but the toll has been enormous and many crave revenge. Tequilia has mobilized for war alongside every other major power. The 2nd Expeditionary Fleet, commanded by Shipmaster Admiral Arnold Leminski, is activated for the offensive. Ceremony and spectacle greet the new crews as warship after warship lifts off into the stars. Now marks a turning point in the war. One fleet will boldly venture out into enemy territory. It's a long journey ahead, and it may be humankind's last hope to win. Billions are mobilized, reserves are called up, and conscription is reactivated. These newcomers fill out the ranks, replacing losses, while the active duty help bring them up to speed. The 2nd Expeditionary is normally comprised of over 200 ships, but over half have been destroyed in the opening moves of the Dominion's invasion.
There's no good comparison for what space combat is like because there's nothing in your everyday life that it can be compared to. The closest I can come up with is like throwing a marble at another marble that someone else threw before it hits you in the face.
The Empire also relies heavily on corvettes, which are only designed to operate within a couple days of a planetary base. For a long-endurance mission like this one, they must rely on tanker ships. The tankers provide not just fuel and food, but extra living space for their crews as well.
It takes a certain type of personality to be a spaceman. You have to be used to ceilings so short you can barely stand and hallways so narrow you have to end up brushing shoulders with people as you pass by. Anyone who cares about privacy or personal space does not last long. And there is no escape. You can't open a window, you can't go outside, you can't go anywhere where there's more than an arm's length of room between you and the nearest bulkhead. And for up to a year if you're really unlucky.
Spacers aren't just highly skilled, they're a different breed. You have to be supremely unbothered by long periods of confinement and monotony, and you have to have precise attention to the most granular level of detail. These are people who, back home, are often seen as the quiet loner type. They keep to themselves and rarely, if ever, seek attention. But when you get the chance to talk to them, you get a sense of immense level of knowledge behind their eyes.
Life isn't meant to exist in space. Every time you go up there, you feel like a goldfish in a bag. You think about how fragile life is, the constant upkeep and maneuvering needed to stay up there, and that's not even getting into combat yet.
So then why did you choose to do it?
Because I can't imagine doing anything else. Yes, it's cramped, lonely, and downright terrifying at times. But after it was over, all I could think about was how I wanted to go back. They say you were born a spaceman. The voyage calls to you. When I'm planetside, I long for that vastness and solitude again, and I want it bad enough to fight for my right to keep doing it. Warships are never stationary in space either. Most of the time, they're orbiting the planet going thousands of arshin per second. Anytime you want to go somewhere, you have to take into account how fast you're already going. And you never truly travel in a straight line because of the gravity of the planets and other bodies involved. The calculations must be extremely precise because of the distances we're working with. Even a 1% error or even a 0.1% error can end up being millions of kiloarshin off target. In battle, you approach the enemy moving multiple kiloarshin per second. There's not much you can do at that point besides hope that your calculations were better than theirs. Before getting assigned to space duty, you are subject to a comprehensive psychiatric evaluation. It includes lengthy tests for any degree of either claustrophobia or agoraphobia. Those who pass, even then, about 1 in 1,000 end up being medically discharged for psychological reasons. Warships often spend long periods of time in deep space. At those extreme distances, planets and moons are about as small as stars, meaning there's no fixed visual reference points. It is the closest mankind has ever come to completing total isolation. After evacuating Kardashev, we were ordered to go into enemy space. Our mission was to seize a planet that we believed they were using as a superluminal communications relay.
The second expedition barrels toward the icebox. It's a trajectory that requires a close flyby past the frozen planet's only moon. Here, the stage is set for the first large-scale confrontation between two spacefaring species.
By this point, we had some experience with Dominion in space before. Their formations would move in these highly complex patterns at all times. Frustrating to target, but oddly beautiful to observe. I honestly wish I had the chance to meet one of their captains. People say that we're like machines, but the other side, I think, takes it to a whole new level. Their ships were lighter and could accelerate faster than ours, which meant they could evade us entirely if they wanted to by rapidly changing orbits. We would run out of fuel long before they did. But when they moved in to attack us, our heavier brawler-oriented ships would outlast them in a prolonged fight. They liked to make hit-and-run attacks, intersecting our orbits at sharp angles so that we couldn't pursue them. Once they passed us, we knew they would have to go all the way around the planet before they could engage us again, which took about 40 minutes. That was our window of opportunity for atmospheric insertion.
Less than half an hour into the battle, Admiral Leminsky reveals his tactical genius. His troop transports were parked on the moon during the flyby, which is now on the other side of the planet. The rest of the second expeditionary fleet is at this point just a decoy, and the Aradinics have taken the bait. The alien fleet is now blocked from intercepting the troop landings. The landing forces are comprised mainly of Marines, but also various other Army and Reserve units that were available, including Kardashev's 31st Guards. It's a treacherous approach, even without the threat of the enemy fleet. Land-based air defences launch heavy projectiles into the air, and upon landing the troops must storm fortified enemy positions. The objective is to find an alien communications relay. Signals Intelligence believes this planet is the source of communications for the entirety of their operation in human space. The problem is that no one knows where exactly the transmitter is, or even what it looks like. The most likely location was thought to be what appeared to be a large, circular city at the equator. Airstrikes and artillery pound every inch, but the communications don't stop. The troops will need to move in and search building to building, room to room.
The Dominion claimed to use AI to organize their society in the most efficient way possible, but the layout of their cities simply defied comprehension, totally impractical to everyday life. So that begs the question, if not for the lives of its very own citizens, what was all this productivity for? Was it simply a city-building algorithm run wild? Or was it building something with a purpose? It's very likely that the Aerodynamics themselves didn't know what they were working towards. AI is inherently non-transparent. We'll most likely never know what its end goal was. Some theorize that the Dominion's AI leader was itself out of control and had no real ultimate end goal. Others believe that the AI's only goal was to continue its own survival. It was attempting to subdue any threats to its existence. Others, still, believe that its motives simply defied human understanding, and that its ultimate goal would be unrecognizable to us altogether.
There had always been these urban legends, conspiracy theories, and they made sense when you think about it. We had been expecting a first contact for centuries, so of course we would have had some kind of response prepared. There was a talk of a covert special unit hunting down the aliens' leadership. At first I thought it was a psyop, making it look like the government had a plan when they didn't.
Did you ever see the floor?
In person, a couple of times. The first was on the surface of the icebox. We linked up with the Marines on the second day. They had their own objectives, but we were pushing the city center together. The four, they were originally part of a Winged Hussar unit, which were the Marines' airborne recon troops, the fleet's eyes and ears. But we started to suspect that they were something more than that.
The 31st Guards rendezvous with elements of the 300th Marine Brigade. Minutes later, they are ambushed from dug-in enemy infantry and armor. The Marines are the land arm of the Navy. Their priority is to serve the needs of the fleet in securing space. They spend most of their time aboard ships and space stations, making them highly effective in the close quarters of urban warfare. The Winged Hussars were a unique form of naval special reconnaissance, designed to operate in extremely remote areas. They were capable of piloting light fighters and then dismounting to operate on foot. Under Leminsky's leadership, they became one of the most effective units of the war, utilizing their rapid air mobility to strike faster than the Aerodinics could react. They were so effective that one unit in particular began to achieve a sort of mythical status, coming to be known only as the Four.
First time we saw them fight, it settled it. They were something else. You can just tell when you're in the presence of something larger than life. Before you know it, you're along for the ride, kicking in doors and pushing their objective.
The phenomenon of the Four is one of the most interesting things about the war. They played a role in every major cornerstone victory. Always at the right place, always at the right time. But perhaps their greatest contribution was to morale. Our first contact had turned everything we knew about warfare upside down, and suddenly 4 people appeared to know what they were doing.
The Winged Hussars, supported by countless Marine and Army units, make a shocking discovery. The communications relay turned out to be beneath the entire city. It works on a scale that utterly defies imagination. Admiral Leminsky wastes no time launching antimatter strikes, collapsing the entire city down into the parabolic relay below.
Destroying the icebox relay bought us time to get off the back foot. Proved the enemy wasn't as invincible and all-knowing as we thought it was. After seeing them as these mere, unfeeling machines for so long, it felt good to know that we could beat them, that we could hurt them, we could make them afraid. The Admiralty's big gamble had paid off, and they wanted us to double down. My destroyer was assigned to escort the assault carrier Genesis. That ship was the nerve center of the offensive, a black box for covert operations. They were the only command unit that was consistently coming up with good ideas.
The Genesis as a ship was a lightning rod for unconventional thinkers. Before the war, it had garnered an undeserved reputation for taking in the fleet's misfits, its black sheep, if you will. Her captain, Lower Admiral Arnold Leminsky, was reputed for being something of an eccentric.
Admiral Leminsky was a visionary. He was a strange man, even by spacer standards. He knew how to think like an alien because he was probably the closest thing we had to one. Getting reassigned to the Genesis wasn't exactly a punishment, but it carried a certain stigma. The word among us captains was that if you had a crewman who was talented but just different than everyone else, send them to that carrier. That's where the Four were based as well. There were some kind of intelligence officers operating under the cover of the fleet's special forces. And while so much was on a need-to-know basis, we were privy to their ultimate objective. Their mission was to backtrace the source of the Dominion's AI processing power, follow the trail of communications to what we assumed would be their homeworld. In order to unlock the final piece of the puzzle, we needed to capture an Aerodinic ship. Word came from the carrier that we were returning to human space, which was our best chance to catch one alone and distracted. That's where the fighter wing came into play.
I wouldn't say that I regret the decision to join, but if I had known everything that would happen ahead of time, I probably wouldn't have. I was a pilot of an S-135 Egret fighter bomber, a second lieutenant on the 3rd Multi-Role Squadron of the carrier Genesis. Our area was the nicest part of the ship, especially the flight lounge, and while it was great, I also felt like it created some resentment from the others. Can we move? I don't like this angle.
Do you still remember how to fly?
Oh yeah, you never forget. primary flight display, engine status panel, radar navigation display. After a certain point, you're not even aware of the controls anymore. It's more of an extension of your body.
The program is controversial, but the results undeniable. They have extraordinary reaction times, an average IQ of 130, and score far higher in spatial reasoning than any unaltered pilot. They know their spacecraft inside and out, what it can do, and how to push it to its very limits. And they are breathtaking to watch. Many consider them to be the Navy's most precious asset, but others didn't agree with the level of special treatment they received.
I've been harassed, threatened, gone into fights, and you're stuck in a metal box in space with these people for months. Once you've been living that close together for about a month or so, everyone starts getting super tense with one another. There was actually a murder on our ship, and no one knows who did it. You're supposed to trust these people with your lives, but it wasn't always like that. Whenever an alert was called, everyone would drop what they were doing and run up to the hangar deck. It was also guaranteed that every time you went out, someone you knew wasn't going to come back. It can really weigh on you when people you're on bad terms with don't come back. Your last ever interaction with them was a shouting match where you said some things you didn't really mean, and now you can never take it back. That's happened to me a few times. Morale was low. Some days it's hard to even get out of your rack. You get trapped in a loop doing the same thing over and over, even when someone else dies. The majority of our losses were caused by mid to high tonnage warship defenses. They fielded several kinds of highly exotic point defense weapons, and they could destroy small craft in seconds. They had these rapid-firing lasers. We called them pinpoints. They were extremely accurate, and their time on target was instant. Their effective range changed depending on environmental and atmospheric conditions, which meant we didn't always know if we were safe or not. But we were really afraid of their command ships. They could jam your radio, your radar, everything, and they could actually warp space around you. If you got too close, it folded your fighter into a ball with you still inside it. I remember we recovered the wreckage of some egrets that had been folded. They looked like crumpled up pieces of paper. You couldn't even tell they used to be spacecraft. The corpsmen had to cut through it and pull bodies out in pieces. The next day, 3 pilots got arrested for refusing orders to attack that same ship again. I wasn't one of them because at that point, I think part of me was hoping I'd just get taken out.
What about the Ford? Did you ever see them?
As part of the Genesis Air Wing, I actually saw the Ford pretty often. You would see them walking together on the hangar deck. They kept to themselves most of the time, and I didn't believe the hype. I definitely didn't think they were an undercover intelligence unit. We were all supposed to be a team, but it felt like they were getting to call a lot of the shots. When I heard their plan to capture an enemy ship, I thought it would never work. It went poorly, and the 4 ended up in trouble. That was when the Admiral's gloves came off and nukes were suddenly on the table. The flight lead wanted volunteers for a mission to slip in and deliver a strike package of tactical nuclear bombs. I don't know what came over me, but before I knew it, They were securing the nukes under my wings. There's a moment when you just know you're part of something big, something daring that's once in a lifetime. And once you get a glimpse of the difference you can make, of who you can be, everything changes.
The 3rd Multi-Role Squadron flies in an unusual formation. They're high above their quarry, a lone Aerodinic cruiser. It appears to have strayed off from its escorts due to a lack of central communications, a common sight after the destruction of the relay. This one, Admiral Leminsky, wants alive. Little is known about the Dominion's fighter craft, including their name and true specifications. However, they are faster and more maneuverable. The Egret, however, is better armoured and has a higher payload for both anti-air and ground. Out of the clouds, a destroyer emerges, its radar signature masked by the fighters above it. It turns broadside and unleashes a hail of proximity fuse shells, shredding the incoming enemy fighters.
And their crazy plan actually worked. It was the only instance of an alien unit ever surrendering during the war. That was when I started to believe in them. That team was the only thing that the Aerodinics actually feared. This was an enemy that had been terror bombing our cities for months. And the worst thing was just how little they cared. I wanted to make them hurt the same way they made us. I wanted to make them hate us, because I'd rather be killed by someone who hates me than someone who doesn't care at all.
The captured enemy ship was finally able to interpret the coordinates of the enemy mainframe, but launching an offensive against an entirely unknown system would be the hardest part yet. It required the unprecedented cooperation and trust between rival superpowers, and the revival of an old technology long thought to be obsolete. The Aerodinic homeworld was a small, sun-blasted planet orbiting a blue giant star, farther in space than any human had ever been before.
Near a star that bright, it's actually quite easy for them to hide a large fleet of warships. On the other hand, we're coming in against the backdrop of deep empty space. Our heat and radar signatures stand out like a beacon. There was no way for us to approach the homeworld without alerting the enemy's fleet. We risked everything, even part of the last fleet defending Earth, for this.
Every one of us was prepared to die. It was our one and only chance to make a difference. If we failed, we were dead anyway. We had nothing to lose at that point, and an absolutely burning hate for these soulless goddamn alien bastards.
It has come down to this: every risk, every sacrifice. There is a chance to strike at the home world of the Dominion, where all of its processing power and computations are done. If successful, humankind can turn the tides completely, turn the conqueror into the conquered. But success is not guaranteed, and the Dominion will throw everything it has at the incoming fleet. For now, the Empire remains in peril